While we are waiting for, maybe everybody's here, but if not, while we are waiting for the rest of the people, I will read one short sutra. This is, again, there is a tradition of simply reading the sutras just to create some sort of a cause and condition, or Jagaraketu Arya Dharmata, Sobhava Shunyata, Atsala, Prati, Sarva Loka Sutra, Beoketu Babachuni Rangingo, Tombani Mio, Tadeba Tamjil, Nawito, Sanjata Yusim Tamjila Chatlu, Digeta, Gitoba Tujina, Chom then the Ritaji, Church Kam, Shichi Chapel, Shambala, Chuni Rangingo, Jitawali Mio, Juso, the Hitse, Ned, Chanjusim Sambachim, but Sem, but Tommy Batasan, do, Lada Midan, Hamayin Lasoba, Promochitamjin, and Dubergero. Dene korin duba 탐지지 좀 낸들라 양방 양도 거르와지진 차자데 랑랑게 초지도도 최비 초가 탐지지 최버제 디당도 제 르머제 볼라야 미쩌버 미제데 최인이 발점된 것들이 두버지로 대제 좀 낸데는 남동방 예비절로 똑밤 미제장 안남동 투지 진지를 코는 수소 랑게 매바다 삼바지다 버진도 송도고 나와데 좀 된데니 달라 최된데 젠달라니 마이노 냐모 대양 코르 발모지 대달래장 가지기니 지던 하마진도 예비 최된도 냐모 대lang 에버지 도버지도 가지기는 최든지 샘잔에 맞도버 재미베 최든도 냐모 대lang 에버지 도버지도 가지기는 샘이자 마제바임베 다절로 최든도 냐모 대lang 에버지 도버지도 가지기는 최든지 주마진도 나지 주마진도 마르비 최든도 냐모 대lang 에버지 도버지도 가지기는 최든지 랑진지 마제바 원이지 미네바 레단체베 타탐제단 좀 또보다 또베 유레데바 토마메 비드니 트바탐지 넘버다 비추던도 냐모 대랑 에버진지 도버지도 되는 좀 낸데지 춘이 랑경고 지다와 닐미 요르주고 델 잉제단데 비쿠르체네 코르드바데다글 하던 타데버지비 또보면 버서버 시주 요저 자지 옹벌로조데 요즈데 초주 탐진 아마진의 코르드나 전주선바선바침 잠벌도 버지벌로 꿀네 전주선바 잠벌지고 파모지 또방하고 타데버지버 심지신이 지지를 최탐지 지지를 따와던 메바 타데버지님데 다기진 좀 낸들로 주어져 원년바다 요새 대다진 좀 낸데지 자지 옹벌로 버지로 대내 좀 낸들로 전주선바 잠벌지 디기져서도 좀 낸데는 남자다 예비치로 또 버면 되죠 코르드바데다 메바다 또 타데버데 찔레죠 좀 낸데니 철로 때 탕보데다 근 양다 발라섬 근데 가지기는 양다 발라라 가지기는 양다 발라서 좀 낸데지 철로다 탕보데다 그 넘버 2 토버지버 총라섬 좀 낸데 철로다 탕보데다 간사기 리니 치라섬 좀 낸데 철로다 탕보데다라 타데 나왔다 팀비 빼지 지달라 좀 낸데 철로다 탕보데다 다다 소소도 간사 마음비 뒤는 중얼 저 라섬 좀 낸데 철로다 탕보데다라 로비 간사는 되는라보다 말라버 저벌민지 발라섬 좀 전에 콘디바데다 그 태좀 잡아지벨도 달라 셰도서 되게 지서받은 좀 낸데지 가서 잠벌 되게도 좀 낸데 남자다 예외절로 떠버리면 되죠 콘디바데다라 메바도 받아 타데 바지들 줄이 시에서라니 장바다 마지비 왕래시 받아 메바 치준도 주도 산제남네 장바다 선바받 메바 조함 메바 춘이랑경 지다발레 미요 직분인데 디니 산제 탐지지 주의는 체레 장바다 준세 장바남지 양다 바마인 바다 양다 바마인 베줄라트네 또 바마인 디테이잖아 메바다 또 바타데 베주르 잠버치 디기도 철로다 베탕 바데다 지군 양다 발람서 윤데 카지기니 양다 발랄라 카지기니 양다 바말라서 시에서만 철로다 베탕 바데다자 양다 바인 바존데 카지기니 저덤 지다 나와준데 예비 최된도 냐마양 예노 대지 지르시는 중원시던 디제 바타데 바네 타데 바 중원시도 중원처럼 가지기는 저 탐제 샘잔에 마다바 재미비 저던 돈년 바다양 지시르시는 ჩვენ 어수수도 반음도 다바 태주도 답에 바자스나지 비투 뒤 탐지도 다다 ჩვ놈도 나마타니 있음도 나양 되나라 지메데 샘잔에 메비체로 가지기니 샘이좀 마제베는 다저로 저던 돈년 바다양 템바인데 지시르시는 딜 이선 카도금 두섬 타임 메비체로 가지기니 저든지 주마지도 나지 주마지도 마두비 저던 돈년양인데 지시르시나 저 탐지네 주진의 제신 중위체로 가지기니 저 탐자라지 마지바당 원이 지면에 바당 레단집에 타탐지다 또 바당 또비 율리데 바탐이 베티네 저 바탐지 남벌데비 저던 돈년양인데 지시르시나 저 탐자랑 원이 친지 말로바데 임베저런 잠바 양다바 가지기 양다바 마인 베야존데 잠바총 하메바메 셔르신 바다게 또 가지기니 잠바담 바다 셔르 딩 남자도 보 하마네 양다 바도 저도 집에 또 잠바초 지기도 철로 답이 탕 바디다 랑 넘버 저 송삼 시에서만 셔르 초도 집에 또 양다 발라더니 Hamashibachi Juji Chabajin number to Tobasumbatawan Jambachi to Cholata Betanga Batizala Kazaki Rini Chi Lasam Chesuan, Tabachum, you read the Tabachimi. Rini Cholata Betanga, Gile Ju, Hamachi to Yanda Bachin Malaba Sanji Ju, Tobajo, and Jambachi to Cholata Betanga Batida. La Tadebanam Timbe Pechita, Chesuan, Chuji, La Tadebato Pen in some building in Yamacha Vetende. Zambiling to Yamacha Pati Shiti Nam Kalejavis Minam Ranjin Tonja, the Rindilla Shavan, Sosoto, Dejin, Tataji, to Betida, Chuji, Sosoton, Soso Zinda. Jambar number Mata Bezarangi Tonja Lecture, the Chawa, my Bajino Chola, the Betan did as a yanda, but Chinjamala Sanjan and Bichu, Lemadavish, but they need to know. Jambar Rangi Tonja Ritala Yanda Bacha, my invitation to Jibanoto, Betablam, Lawyer, and Batana, the Tuyanda Bani Maino, Jambartawan upon the number of Tumba to be checked pen in Norwood, which it tended. Ribuchi the Ansam Janam Yetemilaja, Batamajaba, the Ganzo Topa, Badana Botabana, Chula, the Betang Balamite Bate. Rimbuchetan and Majabe Kanzaki, Rimbuja the money, but the Gabami Jomachi, the Dala Mijim, December comes on a Mitarvaino, Tembele, Japan, the Cheva to Saba, the Chis about the Juices of Anam. Rimbuchi, Gabaya, Rimbasum, the Jomachi, the Yanda Bachin, Malava, how much would you have about Tabachi, Rimbasum, Bejimbachin, and Yaship into the Junior, the Chula, the Betanga, but of mine. Penny jumps on the church in the Chubabet and the church in the Chuji, and Namam Bataji, church in the Baji, Jam to Chamber, the Babajabe. Jamsoni church in the Babichu Tamji, no Jane, no Dejan, Chola, the Bedanga Batadejang, and the Juni Shabala Temba, the Juni, the Jane, Jean, Jambaji to get to Chola, the Bedanga, but it attached. So the Beganzalama between Ayanda, but John Lasan Shepan and Tatang, Chenam Jarangi, Chitavajin, the Tembana, and Condivan, not one did about the Bajibana. Nanyang and then a Tadebajava touching the Chema 1 0, Jambanganyang and then long Ajadam Gujatong. Gujatan Yidon and Yidon Ajiba to Cholata Betanga, Banditalo Soso becomes a Rimbajuan Jurjan, Baji to get to Cholata Betanga, Banditalo Lobby Consadam. To end Labatamala Bazeba Mijualas and Jesavan Mount Bituzanganyang and then long Ajataban Judites, Consanam, but the Sheriff Chichung, Wangatana Manoto, Mano Bejaram, Betani, Manim Bali, and Percheti. Jenjitan by a mind, but Dunas of a Jerusalem, Duna, Crazy and Banam Jijan, the churches in Barmaji, the Unji to Pad, Yanji Church and Bajurutan, Manora Shepanam Jijan, Bishipan of the Berjevich. Mizuj Mawa, but the Sheberjevich, the church to the church to Chitatom Reshi, Shevana de Mabatana Manora Yang, to the Genesan and Neberjuru, Church, the Surgeon, Rojana of Berjurutan, Yelemato Bachinji, Machine, Chimaron and Berjuru. Chanchi Chirman is something which Roberto takes a Casavan Jambaji, takes the German that Chola, Tabetanga, but the Jijata, the Virgin, Jijit in Kanda. Telajita Tanani Tribala, the Mano Ranging on the Kana German, the Casavan Jambajini, Pumbanama Juan, so come and Jajan, the Tani Jumach, the Tanyas and the Tabat and Tezu the Zone to Wayino. Ranji Chama belong with Tani, the Nawas and Mebatana and Tubaino, the Jiman Ranging on the Church, the Dagger and Chama Bayino Soba. When you to be imagine a YouTube and Nashi Javajita Balagaza, but you imagine Tanyism, but the same to be known as the church that I can job, imagine it about the Jumi to be known. Some to be on the Zunjete, Jejana Chonana, Gangetaba, the Zona Rogero, Corrado, and Pumbota, Kama Jejana, you better D, you know, they were the one of your Jero. Hangi Chen, I'm Jerajan Jam, Mebachin, Chen, Jingavana, Tabates, Vadamebana, Chipetani, but less than Mebayanda, but to be changed to Jero. Tetabata and Bejada Sanji Shingo to Tabana Juro. Jambado no children as a job, never much in the Chunam Tabana Tizu, the Zuma Corrosion, Chunum, and how similar to an Ashi, Toman, whatever Mebel seem to be to Chunum Nawan and my Jambatoya, the Bada Madaban is Corrodana and the Banana Unisim, now I see Javino, the Kajakas of Batan Court, the Badatam, Jisu, on the German, the Jisumba Longaberto, Chuni Ranging, 1 year, Muir. Tadebatam Janam and Dozo, Jagajikan Badana, Shila Bendana, Yishi Juji, Yishi Day, Juji to the Tanapa, Danashi Lishani, the Nejitan Jodo Umitawata de Bandile Traba Yin Sunke. What I just read is perhaps one of the most important short sutra where studies such as Madhyamika derived from. To make it relevant to our day-to-day life, we, as a human being, we rely on things like symbol, things like language. For instance, language is so powerful. It really creates the whole culture. It gets misunderstood. It sometimes gets understood. It gets, exaggerated. It gets underestimated. And of course, like songs are written because of language. Stories are told using language. And I think it's very obvious, even within two nations or culture, seemingly one word actually has a different, altogether different background. Now, to make it more pragmatic, for us, what is relevant to us? Not to get carried away, to not blindly believe in one definition, for instance. I'll try to decipher with giving you some example. For instance, when you say exist, it's very vague. What do we mean? How do we define correctly something that is exist? What does it mean? Or not exist? There are obvious, vague terms like infinite. Like, I guess it means, many, or like infinite, or like immeasurable. But the actual word itself is vague. But not only infinite, finite also is vague. So if you really, use a little bit of analytical thinking, every language we use, every term we use is vague. So, to create a value that is universally good for both you and me actually is something very vague. Most of the time it's just an assumption. Now, to know this, what it does is it immediately pokes a hole with all these boxes that we create, that something is good, something is not good, something is valuable, something is not valuable, etc. Anyway, I don't know how to translate this properly, but the sutra is called "While all phenomena not swayed from its true nature, yet manifesting limitlessly." This is the name of the sutra. And usually many sutras have these sort of role player, so to speak. Like many of you here, you are familiar with Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra is basically a dialogue between Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra. And this sutra is basically a question asked by Manjushri. And the question is almost the answer itself, to which Shakyamuni Buddha confirms. Those who wish to sort of explore more, please look up to the sutra. Of course, due to our habitual patterns, to really apply this on our day-to-day life may be difficult right away from the beginning. But the difficulty is not because the sutra is so difficult to read or too long, or it's very, it's archaic language. It's not because of that. It's just so difficult to break a certain habit that we have. I mean, you know this very well. For instance, like environmentally, it kind of makes sense not to do a lot of things or do a lot of things, but we don't do because, or we don't do or we do because of our habit. But even to just hear the information, even to hear the sort of systematic deciphering of how things are, even to know it intellectually, I guess it could plant the seed. I was talking about my paranoia this morning. I mentioned this because I wanted to really talk about this sutra. So when I rewind my paranoia, sometimes, not all the time, when I rewind my paranoia and play it back, 99.99, they are ridiculous. Many times it's rooted to my own self-centered habitual pattern of self-centered. Actually, nobody really cares about me because they're all busy caring for themselves. I could be walking here naked, you would not be noticing. So I shouldn't be really caring about where your phone is and how your phone is aiming. I shouldn't, because you are busy doing something else. So just because of the paranoia, just because of the anxiety, you create this world. And we also create this world in group. And I think this is a really, really powerful. When a phenomena is created by a group of like-minded people, it becomes a trend. So sometimes overnight you become a celebrity, or overnight you become like the scandal. But then you'll be worrying about, if you become a celebrity, then you have a problem right here. Because then you have to really worry about how you behave. And then if you create something scandalous, then you also worry. But meanwhile, most of it is only creation of your own paranoia. Now, of course, my example is very, very sort of generic. To be more precise, I think it happens to us individually in a very, very different manner and nuance. So I think everybody is a little bit of a autistic. Everybody is a little bit of a hyper this, hyper that. And everybody is a little bit of a bulimic this and bulimic that. And then, of course, there is a peer pressure. So, there is still a chance individually to fix this, I think. Even if you hate all these, like complicated rituals and the mantras and the dharanis, just sitting as what we did. Even if you do what we did, like this morning, for a few minutes, it's actually confusing the force of chain of thoughts. Our thoughts are like a train on the track, and even if we sort of sit for 5 minutes, it's already confusing its force. Of course, we are too cowardly and we are too scared to totally stop the chain of thoughts, train of thoughts. In other words, we are too scared to be totally awakened. But it's not so profitable to be dead drunk. Why not opt for sort of a nicely tipsy sort of situation? Sort of you still know how to behave normally, but you have injected some kind of awareness or some kind of injection that makes you slow down a bit, at least. I think there is a genuine wish for that. I've been reading and noticing this with the people too. From the situations like a glass of wine or two, just, to be feeling tipsy, and also like taking holiday for a week, that you save your time, money, just so that you don't go to office. Isn't it strange? You go office, you go to office, you go to work, save, so that 10 days you don't have to go. It's a very, really strange thing to do. There is wish, I think, there's a really longing to break, but then not enough courage to break it all, of course not. I was told that in China, sometimes parents scold their kids when they're lazy, "Are you becoming Buddhist?" I heard that words like "tangping" or something. Yes. Lying flat. I think it really, there is that longing to break a little bit. But because we don't have the, like that wisdom, focusing, and the code of conduct, your lying flat ends up becoming a doing, it ends up becoming running, almost like. It becomes an endeavor. Yeah. Instead of freeing you, it actually binds you. But, we can apply some skillful ways to actually retreat ourselves or break this habit. Anyway, one could sort of say that basically all the teachings that are taught in the Kanjur and Tenjur is purely made to tackle with habitual patterns. Yeah. So you can, if somebody asks what's there in the 84,000 teachings, you can, if the person is new to Buddhism, you can say it's basically 84,000 ways to tackle with habit, 84,000 habit. But habits are very, very clever. Habit A, let's say you are trying to, untangle the habit A. Then you apply a new habit B, and you might experience a victory, manage to untangle from the habit A. But then, before long, without you even knowing, the B becomes a habit. Again, this is something I'm just expressing because I have talked to and noticed also people who are working with the mental health. Many times when we are working with a mental illness, we apply a method. Before long, this method ends up becoming an issue. Because, method is only a method. It's not end. It's just a means. Anyway, as I said this morning, we will do 2 more sitting, so we will do the next one. This one will be very short, 7 minutes. This time, okay, no need to start yet. This time, again, I would still suggest you to sit straight. I mean, you can lie down or you can, I don't know, all of that, but I think sitting straight is probably a better idea. Okay. So this time we are going to something very, very obvious, something that is tangible. And those who are new, I would really suggest you to do this. If you are asking me today, what should we do daily? I would say this. And this is tangible. I mean, this is graspable. Like looking at a thought, that's like, thoughts, before long, we already are wandering somewhere, and then millions of thoughts have come and gone. For the beginners, it's a little abstract, I should say. Although, that's actually really, really quite an important one. And by the way, I'm still continuing from the bodhicitta. We come here for a 1-day retreat to make this worthy. we have taken refuge, and we are we are practicing bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, citta has something to do with the mind, and we are dealing with the mind. But mind and the body is very connected. This is why I have to say sit straight. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. If you are more experienced and savvy sort of meditator, no need to sit straight. You can do upside down position. However, crushing sesame seed, weaving carpets, reigning our country. I'm just depicting some of the great, meditators or the Mahasiddhas of the past. These meditators, they will really look at you and get puzzled. Why are you sitting straight? Like Indrabhuti was a king. He was in the samadhi while running the country. Yeah, but anyway, body and mind has a strong connection, of course. Very easy to prove. I will ask my finger to point at me. I can order. So that's why, some sort of a confinement of the body is important. Okay, this time, while sitting straight, you should choose either part of your body or a feeling also. I feel like my bladder is sort of half full. So there is that, like needing to go to the washroom kind of feeling. And it's quite obvious, to me. So I'm going to use that. I don't know what you have, just do it. I'm sure some of you just want to, you just can't, stop, feeling like napping or something. Also, if there is a different feeling in different parts of the body, move there. Sometimes, when there's no feeling, then choose a part of the body. Let's say choose a hand, let's say your hand, right hand. Just, know that, observe that. First, maybe vaguely, gradually, your hand has nails, skin, bones, vein, and then blood, of course. And then there's a label called hand, okay? So that's how we are going to do, okay? feeling is so important for feeling is because feeling is big ingredient of what we call me, life. And many times feeling is also bridge between the physical body and the mind. Taking care of the body is already so difficult. I mean, just the variety of shampoos alone, you know that, right? And then all kinds of grooming method, dietary situations, the vitamins, etc., etc. It's nothing compared to taking care of the feeling. At least taking care of the body bit, we somehow know what to do. Things like we think that we should drink soup of somebody's house, right? Bird's nest. Stuff like this. We have all kinds of ideas like this. We have this kind of, like, okay, I'm thirsty, let's drink some water. Now, feeling, how do you take care of the feeling? That's much more difficult. I mean, feeling that's more related to the physical, yes, we can still do few things. And of course, we can go to Cantonese massage. I call it Cantonese massage because when you go to Hong Kong, those masseuses, they are so tough. Yes, they really, they pay extra for people who will do extra painful stuff. In this level, I think a feeling maybe, because it's very related to the body, and then like listening to music maybe, smelling lavender, I don't know. Tasting creams, I don't know, like this, you know what I'm talking about. Trying to fix the feeling. Afternoon tea, Chinese tea, stuff like like alcohol, stuff like that. And I don't know, like feeling, like touching, like something wearable, like very sexy underwear that nobody's going to see, but only you know that you are wearing. So, it's like things that we human beings do. But it's okay if that helps you, I could, someone could always think, what are you wearing? Like, I don't know, like a living room, flower arrangement, stuff like that, create a feeling. It's sort of doable. Now there are different, then more deeper, more complicated feelings, right? Those are difficult. Like towards the afternoon, my mind becomes a little wilder, so you have to excuse me a bit. Like I don't know, some attraction to something that normally you will never be attracted to, urge, some stupid urge, and then love for trouble, right? We do have this a lot. We just are itching for trouble, adrenaline. And those are still okay. Not too bad. These things still can be sorted out. Much more complicated and much more deeper feelings that you don't know why it's like this. It could be, I don't know. So this is where I think the Dharma is really important, because this is where Mr. Freud and Mr. Jung, they finish their stories. They will go all the way to childhood trauma, and that's the end. They don't go beyond that. Then there are other things that you cannot explain. Like myself, I'm a victim of afternoon sunlight. I hate afternoon sunlight. It makes me feel so empty and sad. But then, towards the at night, again, all gone. Afternoon light makes me feel very, yes, kind of a near chronic depression level. Like, I'm telling you this just if you need to avoid me. It's a good time to avoid around, Well, yeah, afternoon. Even if it's cloudy, still, I don't know why. And then, I don't know, someone else's laughter, sound of their laughter irritating. Don't get too stressed. You can laugh however you want to laugh. But yes, but I also can't really describe. It does. Feelings. I'm trying to explain what is feeling. And then I guess there's all the other feeling, pointless, feeling directionless. Oh, by the way, I've been talking only sort of more the negative feeling. There's so many also nice feelings too. Those are very, very important aspect of our life. I mean, if you know how to sort of enhance them, by all means you should. Very understandable why there should be a lavender, bottle of lavender oil. If it helps your feeling, mood, that's it, mood. Oh goodness, mood, I've forgotten. This is a really big part. Sometimes I wonder whether the modern people's mental sickness, I don't know whether it's a mental sickness or a feeling sickness. But yes. Now the question is what to do with it, how to handle, right? There's so many methods. Pilgrimage, for instance. Gazing at the Buddha's face like a statue also. And then, of course, in the Tantrayanas, mantras and mudras, the dharanis. And what we did this just earlier, we did something most practical, easiest, and the most economical, I think. It doesn't mean that it will, by the way, you should not think that it will sort of, it's like it's going to fix everything. Or maybe it does, but I don't want you to think that, I want you to think like this. It's okay, let me use my bladder. So I was thinking about, needing to go to toilet. So, this bladder, I was just concentrating on that earlier. And then somebody is cleaning some cups out there. I heard that. I came back to the bladder. But then what happened? There was a part where I sort of went through this bladder and the node of the bladder, the inseparability of this. And this subject and object, sort of the non-duality of the subject and object, the bladder, knower, and the bladder, inseparability of that, it is fascinating for me for a few minutes, for a few moments. So I was fascinated for a few moments, and then I immediately told myself, you are not supposed to be fascinated. You are supposed to just be aware of bladder. But then from then, the rest of the sitting became a little bit not so good because I was intellectualizing too much. Towards the end, I told myself, it's okay. I caught few fish. I mean, this afternoon's, part of this afternoon's life was worthy to live. Because normally, in another situation, I would have just gone to toilet. While doing the business, I would be texting somebody and planning something, and then, like this. So that's a very not consciously living. So consciously living is important, basically. So we have one more sitting, and that sitting is going to be, you don't have to sit, it's more aspiration, because up to now, what we have been doing is more like more inclined to the ultimate bodhicitta that I just wanted to lead. And I don't want you to think that I've been teaching Mahamudra or Mahasanti. Absolutely not. I didn't even touch there. Because some of the expression may be similar, so some of you may be just sort of automatically think that. Okay, after the break, we will do more aspiration. I will just say and you just think. And the aspiration, I'm doing it because, today, the whole day, we have done a little bit of practice. Benefit of that we dedicate it to people, and all the good deeds and the powerful deeds of the translators, the volunteers, also we aspire for a greater goodness.